everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Riders Week 30. Clap it up! Before we begin, of course, the customary thank yous to the people that helped put this together. You have Mr. Russ Anderson, Mrs. Gina Ink. They coordinate everything, so clap it up. You, of course, have the administrators, you have staff that help put this together, you have students, you have the tech up there doing everything to make sure that you can hear me and everybody read. So many great people that help put this together and make it possible. A couple quick things before we get started with today's excellent readers. You have, number one, some fundraising for Riders Week. I know I see Mrs. Gerber up there roaming around with a bag of bracelets that look just like this, advertising for Fanboys, Riders Week 30, and you have caramel pops, all for the low price of $1 a piece. So you can always find one of us and contribute to that if you want one of those. That works excellently. Also, hey, you never know. You might end up on social media. We're making a big push on social media. Check us out on TikTok, FHS Riders Week, and see what you can do there. So, brought to you by the excellent Friend Broadcasting Club. Join that too. There you go. First up, we have one of my colleagues in the English department. Excellent individual. Congratulations, dance team. 5th place at state. Excellent job. She is the head of the dance team. So without any further ado, Lord of the Dance, Erin Kelly, come on down.
Give a quick shout out to my 5th period sophomores and of course shout out to all my dancers that came here today. So this is not my first Writers Week, but this is my first time speaking at Writers Week. I'm a little nervy, but I'm excited to be here. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you teachers for bringing your classes down to celebrate writing and storytelling and all that good stuff. So as you can see, that's little me and my brothers. Of the 3 of us, and we're all very close in age, and there's kind of a unique dynamic that exists within our family that I would like to talk about. The best teacher I've ever had is not someone you might expect. It isn't my 5th grade teacher, Miss Fowler, or my geometry teacher, Mrs. Gierman, or my college professor, Dr. Wilge. Honestly, it isn't either of my parents, and they're teachers too. Instead, it is my youngest brother, Jason. My middle brother, Brian, and I have always agreed that life with Jason is unconventional, to say the least. We're all very close in age, with just a little more than 3 years between all of us, so we've really only known life with each other. That being said, we've also only ever known each other in our true, authentic forms. I'm the overbearing, controlling, know-it-all oldest child and only daughter, so double whammy. Brian is the soft-spoken, independent middle child, and Jason is a true youngest child, always tended to, dependent, emotional, and the one who rules the house. A better explanation for the way he is, though, is he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder on his 3rd birthday in 2003. I imagine most of us are generally familiar with what it means when someone has autism. It truly is a spectrum, and there are varying qualities and quirks and needs that individuals who are diagnosed with autism might possess. If we consider this imaginary spectrum, which is not the tell-all for what to expect or recognize in autistic people, Jason falls pretty close to the end of the line, being fully dependent on the care of others in order to maintain order, routine, and support on a daily basis. It goes without saying that Jason's daily needs have and will continue to dictate how my family functions, but honestly, we couldn't imagine it any other way. I won't say life with Jason is easy or simple or even fun most of the time, because I'd be a big fat liar if I did. I've spent most of my own life resenting his fate he's been given, not understanding why someone with so much spunk and humor and intelligence must be subjected to a life of frustration and extreme sensitivities. Contemplating the whys and what ifs doesn't solve or change or erase anything, but reminding myself of Jason's positive influence on me and my family does. He has no idea what he has done for us, but I've compiled a little list of some things that came to mind. So here are 23 lessons I've learned from my 23-year-old brother. 1, less is more when it comes to communicating with others. Jason is extremely chatty, which is relatable, don't look at me, but he doesn't communicate conventionally. He's mostly gotten by with making single word requests like goldfish or iPad. Other echoed phrases he's heard us encourage him to say his whole life tend to be implemented too, like, can I have a cookie please? Or Aaron, copy me, or I want goldfish. I tend to over-explain and fixate on the right way to say things, but Jason has the right idea with being so direct with his needs and requests. I think I'll start saying things like coffee, or vacation, or nap, or things like that. 2, feel your feelings. It doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. If Jason is mad, he'll let you know he's mad. Sometimes it's just a grumble, but other times it's a full-blown freak out. It is horrifyingly embarrassing when this grown man cannot get a grip on himself in public, but it's almost admirable how he can just kind of let it go. I know I tend to bottle up my frustration and anger and anxiety, so maybe letting it all out might be just what I need to feel better sometimes, just like he does. 3, release your inner child. At the age of 26, I can still recite every last song from The Wiggles and Barney and Elmo's World and most other 2000s kids television shows because they continue to be Jason's favorite. Honestly, he has some good taste. Because some of the songs will kind of slap, honestly. So if you haven't heard like Hot Potato or the Cleanup Song or anything like that recently, pull it up on Spotify because they're pretty good. 4, let the inner thoughts win sometimes. You know how your mom or your sister or your best friend might buy like a soap or a shampoo or a perfume that they've been saving up for or they're just really excited to use or have? Well, Jason knows just the right ones that would make an amazing bubble bath or a concoction, all of it in the sink. Oh yeah, we're frequent customers at Bath & Body Works because of Jason's uncontrollable desire to implement pure chaos. When he was younger, Jason also had a tendency to wander, but I will talk about that later. I think it would do me some good, for my soul at least, to act on my impulses, but within reason, of course. 5, don't hold back your excitement. Like his frustration, Jason is not one to contain his joy and anticipation. Like many people who have autism, he tends to flap his hands when he's really happy and even jump up and down if he's really riled up. We can all allow ourselves to feel and express that kind of happiness when it hits us, or even if it's just in a quiet movie theater or library or somewhere a little bit more public. 6, seek thrills whenever you can. At a very young age, we learn that Jason is a major daredevil. He has been on some of the craziest roller coasters in the country, ziplining through mountain ranges, taking flights on Cessna airplanes, and loves jumping off of high dive diving boards. The adrenaline rush and that pit in his stomach is a feeling he continues to chase. He's fearless. He doesn't think twice about risk or possibilities and just goes for it. He's motivated me to do the same both in my life endeavors and at Six Flags. 7, create plans you can look forward to. Aside from our mom, Jason is the person most obsessed with the calendar. Whether it be trips to a local library or a week-long vacation, Jason needs to have something to look forward to on the calendar, but we can't relate to that. 8, explore the outdoors. In warmer seasons, Jason's weekends tend to consist of hiking with our dad. The serenity of the outdoors allows him an escape from bothersome noises, people, and overstimulation. His balance is impeccable and his stamina is impressive. Many of our vacations have revolved around the opportunity to hike trails and explore the mountains, which has been an amazing opportunity for our family too. Number 9, explore the outdoors, but within reasonable limits. Remember how I mentioned that Jason tends to wander? Well, his explorations weren't reserved for the mountains or the rolling plains in Illinois. Sometimes his itch to walk or run even couldn't be contained. For context, Jason's special interest growing up was VHS tapes, and teenagers, it's okay if you don't know what a VHS tape is, it's all right. But our basement was filled to the brim with VCRs and VHS tapes and all of that, but that wasn't enough for him. The houses in our neighborhood were apparently much more enticing, and conveniently, many of our neighbors left their front doors unlocked. So we have never been able to explain this, but Jason would just know where to go in every person's house to find those tapes and find those VCRs. It was like he directly went there. And this was even if we had never met the people he was quote unquote visiting, total strangers to us a lot of the times. So it goes without saying that we were very popular or unpopular in the neighborhood. 10, hone your talents. If you need anyone to do some quick and impressive multiplication, Jason's your guy. He can also remember any and every address he's ever been to in his life and addresses of those we know. I don't have that kind of party trick, but I can sure brag about his. 11, create clear boundaries. As mentioned earlier, Jason is a man of few words. 2 of his favorite are, Aaron, go. Guess who Aaron is? He's valid for that, obviously. 12, Laugh as much as possible. The best sound to roll through the house is Jason's laughter. It doesn't matter what it is that gets him, and honestly, we don't always understand what he's so tickled by, but when his world is in a good place, our world is in a good place. His shameless and contagious laughter is everything. 13, remember important dates. If you forget anyone's birthday or want to know things like the date of that one time he went to a Waffle House in Nashville, Tennessee, he's your guy. It's kind of amazing the catalog of numbers and data and time he's been able to retain. And while I'm not good like him, I do make an effort to beat him to the punch when recalling important dates. He always wins though. 14, indulge in your interests, specifically food-related interests. Who here likes breakfast food? Oh yeah, so does Jason, and he likes it to the point where he has that every single meal. Who would want that? This isn't a flex by any means, but when I say he can house a short stack in maybe 14 seconds, I'm not kidding. I don't feel ashamed when I do the same with my Chipotle because of him. 15, allow yourself to be the center of attention once in a while or all the time. It's Jason's world and we're all living in it. When he wants to talk or joke or sing or dance, there's no putting it off or ignoring him. His interests and requests take precedent, but they often lead to laughter and fun, so we can't complain. 16, forgive me for this one. Release your inner demons. Again, Jason is a man of few words. He wants to make sure everyone knows when he's let one go by simply announcing, tooting, and moving on with his day. Some may say he's rude, but I think he's got the right attitude. 17, treat everyone's birthday as if it's your own. Birthday cake is quite literally always on Jason's mind. His own birthday is the greatest day ever simply because he can have cake. Everyone else's birthdays are also the greatest days ever because he can have cake. 18, prioritize self-care. Who here likes naps? I love naps. Who here likes to take like a hot shower or a bath or things like that? Like, yeah, comfort, right? And who here likes to binge watch TV? Oh yeah, so if your hand was up at all, you and Jason would get along great. And I'm guilty of following his lead and basking in my me time. 19, express your distaste, but remember that mom always wins. Another word to add to Jason's vocab catalog is nope. Despite all of the great smiles he puts on in the pictures behind me, he hates posing for the camera. My mom loves taking pictures, so there's often some headbutting and lots of resistance on his end. If there's anyone more stubborn than Jason, though, it's my mom. So through all of the arguing and reluctance, she'll always get her shot, as you can see. 20, create inside jokes with others. It will take too long to explain entirely, but Jason has this ongoing game with us where he will compare a store or a restaurant or even a town to another one, and one is good and one is bad. He used to frequent the Savers in Arlington Heights, but it closed very suddenly a few years ago, forcing him to go to other thrift stores. The closing of this store, for whatever reason, makes him laugh harder than anything else. This turned into an entire negative association with the whole town of Arlington Heights. It's a joke, but Arlington Heights is thumbs down. To his absolute delight, I lived in Arlington Heights last year, which was the only thing he ever wanted to talk about. The amount of videos I have of him completely incapable of getting a word out because he's laughing so hard just at the idea of me living there. And it's the funniest thing in the world, being in the worst place on planet Earth, and the amount that I have is unreal. No one else would get this joke, but we feel like we're in on Jason's speak. 21, motivate others to do good. At 10 years old, I had become well established in a sibling support group for those who have siblings with autism. And we belong to a local chapter of the Autism Society of America in Schaumburg. In the summer of 2008, with my mom's help of course, I was motivated to give back to this group that had already done so much for me and my other brother, Brian. To make a long story short, I had a lemonade stand, as you can see, like bottom left. Oh, you don't need to clap, that's okay, thank you though. That's okay. You can clap in a second though, I guess it's cool to say. To make a long story short, I had a lemonade stand with the help of my mom. After setting up outside of local Jewel Osco's craft fairs, talking to the local radio, and even getting a little cameo in the Daily Herald, which is that picture right there, I raised just short of $2,000 for the Autism Society of America and donated it to my local chapter, which was awesome. It was a really good gesture. By the way, the Daily Herald article is hilarious and exaggerates the whole thing so much, so if you ever want to see it, let me know. I find absolute joy in volunteering, raising money for worthy causes, and being an advocate for others, and that would not have happened without Jason being Jason. 22, establish and maintain a closeness with all of your siblings. Brian and I speak Jason's language better than anyone, and there is forever an unspoken understanding and bond between the three of us. Brian and I have learned to be completely selfless when it comes to Jason, and consequently, others. It's not something I can easily explain, but it's just automatic and ingrained in us. 23, indirectly, yet so directly, influence your big sister's life trajectory by merely existing. It's easy to justify my career choice by saying I was influenced by my parents and teachers, and there's truth to that, and I would absolutely attribute my choice to all of them, for sure. Jason, on the other hand, was the underlying driving force behind my aspirations to nurture, mentor, and understand others. I had no choice to be his big sister, and it's been the hardest and coolest job that I've ever had, except for teaching, of course. And it's been a pleasure to take on that role. If you only knew what he had meant to me these past 23 years, that would mean the world to me, and I just might try to tell him next time we get pancakes. Thank you. Up next is Miss Stephanie Gray.
Hi, Fifth Hour. All right, let's go ahead and get this party started, I suppose. This is, without a doubt, one of, if not the most personal things I've ever done in my entire life, because I've never talked about this to anyone, for the most part. But we're going to go over that a little bit more in here. I'm going to try and stick to the script, because anyone that knows me knows that I love to go off script, and I'm going to try real hard not to do that today. But before I get started, I want to give a shout out to my students that did come, because I was not expecting you guys to come. And I appreciate you, and I see you, and I don't think you understand what that means to me. Before I begin, I want to make a disclaimer. The content of this speech is meant to be ultimately positive and helpful to you, but in order to get there, I need to touch on some pretty heavy topics. I'm apparently terrible at using a microphone. It's been a minute. This will briefly, but not graphically, involve mentions of domestic violence, death, and PTSD. If you are sensitive to any of these things because you are dealing with them in some capacity in your own life, and you need to step out, I understand that. However, I'm hoping that you find the following to be beneficial instead. So, I'm Miss Gray. I worked at Friend for 6 years in the special education department. Shout out to special education department. I've also been a speech coach here at Friend and the assistant orchesis coach over at Conant. Yes, woo. Sorry, woo. Credit where credit is due. At Conant, which is my old high school. My background used to be in the performing arts, and by the end of this, you might understand why I'm a little rusty. This presentation makes me feel like I'm returning to my roots. Some people know this, some people don't. I'm actually a Second City graduate, which is a really famous comedy club that is in downtown Chicago. A long time ago, I considered myself to be a performer, but it has been a hot minute since I've been on a stage. In fact, I don't think I've been on this level of stage since April 17th, 2009. Thank you. Actually, that was not an applause line, but I appreciate that just the same. It took a lot to get up here today, so thank you to whomever just did that. This talk does not contain a lot of humor, but rather a lot of honesty. To borrow the opening line from Bo Burnham's Art is Dead, this next song isn't funny at all, but it helps me sleep at night. Before I segue into everything today, I want to introduce you to one of my closest friends. It would help if I knew how to use. There we go. All right, cool. One of my closest friends. But before I do that, I want to do some shout-outs. Is Miss Syed's class here? Shout out to Miss Syed's class, because I had Miss Syed in 2009. So shout out to Miss Syed. I also have shout out to my elementary school friends and my brother, because they took time out of their lives to come out and remember Laura, even though I'm sure hearing this is incredibly difficult. Shout out to my therapist, who is not here. Shout out to Robin Morano, because I tried to wean me out of doing this, and she told me no. I love you too, girl. Yeah, she told me no, so here I am. Shout out to Miss Jill Kohler, who helped me with the brainstorming and writing, and shout out to Gina Enck and Russ Anderson, because seriously, come on, how much work does it take to put this together? And especially to Russ Anderson, because when I asked him about presenting at Writers Week, he simply asked, what is your story and what do you want to tell? And I think that's a loaded question, and this is the story I wanted to tell. So this is my friend Laura Engelhardt. I went to St. Peter Lutheran from 4th grade onward. It was a small school and my graduating class was 30. Laura, or Agnes, or Squiddy, as I like to call her, was the world's biggest tomboy with the best taste in music, because who listens to Vanessa Carlton and Foghat? I feel like it's nobody. She was a huge Chris Daughtry fan, a huge American Idol fan, and I think this is the picture that she would want me showing, because this was the day she met Chris Daughtry, so that's cool. She is also a very, very big WWE fan. She was an avid softball player, put up with all of my bullshit ideas, and wrote some seriously cringe comedy scripts with me. We spent an entire summer drafting ideas for our Dawson's Creek spoof, Jeff's Body of Water, which is probably like Outer Banks, but whinier. At least I assume. I've never seen Outer Banks. Sorry, it's on my list. So here's a couple pictures of us growing up, and I think a lot of these are from the 8th grade high school era. So, oh yeah. That's me in a Hot Topic Donnie Darko shirt with my cell phone clipped to my pants. Oh yeah, where were we? Like seriously, where was this field trip, you guys? I don't even recognize. Probably, yeah. Also, sorry to Ray for not telling her I was putting this up here, so get you some friends that'll put your embarrassing middle school pictures up in front of a high school auditorium in 15 days. So yeah, this is one where we were all at Springfield. So that's us. I'm standing next to Laura. Again, sweet cell phone clipped to my pants. Next picture. So this is most of the people in my graduating class in the summer of 2008, and this was the last time we were all together. Please note that I have a friend lanyard on my pants, and I didn't even go here. That is the same lanyard my keys are on now. So if that's not some foreshadowing, I don't know what is. What else we got here? So, and also these pictures are terrible. They're really old, so I'm sure they're like -4 pixels. So Conant has a tradition that they started my freshman year called open mic nights. And I was one of the fixtures because I got up on stage and I did dumb stuff like this. Yeah, this is in the yearbook. This is in my junior yearbook. So shout out to Camille Lutz, because I'll always have that. That is me with an iPod Shuffle clipped in my pants, a dollar store chain, and also, yes, that is a McDonald's Happy Meal gun toy in my pocket that was very tasteful even in 2007. It looks like this. Shout out to the guy who had that on eBay that I borrowed that photo from, because I don't just happen to have that photo on me. All right, and I show that because after that, Laura was like inspired by that, so she ran with it, and she did a duet that was the Rihanna Ne-Yo song, Hate That I Love You. And she did both parts, went to Goodwill, and brought clothes so she could be half Rihanna, half Ne-Yo, and then performed this at open mic night. And that's a picture of all of us afterwards. It's glorious. That photo is from March of 2009, and it is one of the last photos I have of her. T.S. Eliot is correct in his assessment that April is the cruelest month. April 17th, 2009 changed the entire trajectory of my life. I do not know who I would be without the events of this day. On Friday, April 17th, I didn't know anything had happened until halfway through my day. I was just a senior, walking to my 5th hour math class like a lot of you do every single day. Katie stopped me. Katie told me. She saw it on the local news that morning. Incident in Hoffman, 2 dead, 3 injured. I remember saying, I'm confused, why are you telling me about this? She goes, the footage on TV was Laura's house. And I remember saying, wait, Laura wasn't here today. And I remember screaming, and I think it was me. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember Jordan Catapano, my other English teacher, shout out to Jordan Catapano, sweeping me into the room he was working in alone. I remember him trying to calm me down and trying to make me laugh because neither of us knew how bad things actually were. You have to remember, I asked him to log into the computer because I wanted to see the news. This was 2009. You guys have Snapchat, you have Wi-Fi access, you have iPhones, you have all sorts of things that connect you in this world, but in 2009, all I had was a teacher who could log into the desktop computer. Interesting. Okay, all I had was the teacher who could pull up the computer, and when I asked, he grimaced and said, I don't think that's a good idea. And I said, Jordan, I want to see the house, show me the house. So slowly, like the computer was a fragile thing he might break, he pulled up the news, and on WGN, there it was. But the news had changed by then. 3 dead, 2 injured in Hoffman Estates. The story was still very scant, but it did read that everyone deceased was an adult. I breathed a sigh of relief because that meant Laura was probably okay, since we were kids and that wasn't our age group. There's a reason I'm including this part in the story. I turned 18 the month before in March. Laura turned 18 on January 10th. I feel like everyone has a defining moment in their lives where they unwittingly realize they have reached adulthood. Unfortunately, this was my moment. The realization that we were 18 and now qualified as adults was soul-crushing and visceral. I'm going to stop here for a minute because I feel like we've reached the part where you need context as to what happened on April 17th. And I'll be honest, I'm going to be very slight with the details. The details of that night are so horrible, they are almost incomprehensible. All you need to know is that a man with a weapon made a choice that ended 3 lives, almost 4, and affected not just the people he supposedly called his family, but an entire generation of Conant students and a community as a whole. You guys, I got really far. I got really far. Thank you. I knew it was going to get me. I was warned. But this is not about what happened that night. This is about the aftermath of how to deal with and acknowledge emotions that are so far out of your control. That's way closer to my face than I thought it was. That are so far out of your control. I have constantly... Oh. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was concerned for a second. I've contemplated talking about this at Writers Week for the past few years, but this is the first time that it actually felt right. It's Writers Week 30. It's the 15-year anniversary of Laura's death. And I have taken all of these stories told by my incredible colleagues over the past 6 years and decided it's my turn to be brave. And I lost my place. As a society, we have all experienced a lot of trauma over the past few years, and I'm going to say the quiet part really loudly here. It seems like it is much more common to lose friends in high school these days. I cannot adequately put into words how sorry I am to all of you for your losses. But I guess this is me trying. So this is what I actually wanted to talk about. It's been 15 years since April 17th, 2009, and I went large down autopilot for 12 to 13 of those years. I told myself I was fine without acknowledging how profoundly this event and the loss of my friend affected every single aspect of my life, from my career goals to my romantic relationships and my own mental health. And I'll be honest, I don't remember much past April 19th. The 18th is extremely vivid, but everything after that is just so fragmented. The one thing I've learned about myself more recently is I very much was experiencing PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. More often than not, PTSD is associated with veterans and being in the military, but there's also a checklist for civilians. Were you guys aware of this? Maybe you, it's probably more common in psych classes now, but I was not aware of this. And I did not know until a couple years ago. Last year, my therapist gave me the checklist because I brought it up and asked, how many of these would you have ranked a 3 or higher on a 1 to 5 scale after Laura died? There are 17 questions on that checklist, and if you answer 4 for 2 or more, you are considered symptomatic according to the DSM. I was symptomatic for at least 8 of them. There are things that occurred in April, May, and beyond that I still carry and that still affect me. And I've somewhat made my peace with the fact that they will always affect me and I will always carry them. A triple homicide is a big deal, especially in the suburbs, and let me tell you, the news was all over this one. To this day, I cannot hear the flash of a camera, not even a cell phone camera, without being taken back to being hounded by news crews and reporters who would not leave a bunch of high schoolers alone to grieve their friend. You think decorating your friend's locker when she died is hard? Try having CBS 2 shove a microphone in your face and ask for the correct spelling of your last name. Yeah. I cry every single time I see first responders speeding past me with their lights on, because I will never know if they are driving towards something traumatic that will fundamentally change them as people. If they are driving towards something they can never ever unsee, if they are driving towards something that might undo just a little bit of their humanity that day. I will never own a knife block in my house, because even 15 years later I cannot look at them. All I see is a man slipping a knife up the sleeve of his jacket when he passed through the kitchen, only to use it a few short hours later. For those of you that know me, you know I'm big on cooking. I love me some Food Network. But my knives are in a drawer and they will always be in a drawer. I have to know that I am specifically, consciously reaching for one. And dating, holy shit, you guys. That's kind of a joke, but also you can laugh, it's okay. Holy shit, do you have any idea how exhausting dating is and how intimidating dating is when you have to explain this to every single person that parades through your life and becomes a permanent fixture? It's exhausting. I stopped doing it after my ex-fiance, and now I only give the SparkNotes version. So instead, I'm choosing to talk about it to 400 of my closest friends. So, yeah, that is a woo. So thank you for being here. All right, I'm getting on the home stretch, I promise. This is a great pivoting point because realistically, how do you talk about these things? This is just my story, and this might have been my entire adulthood, but I'm sure that each of you in this auditorium has your own story that has its own varying degrees of trauma. And this is the core of what I'm trying to get at. I get it, it's way easier not to talk about it. I get it. But the effect of not talking about it and expressing those emotions can snowball and become so much greater than you ever realize. I didn't talk about what happened, which led me to not talking about other emotions I have, and next thing I knew, I became emotionally closed off after the course of a decade. It took walking around in March and April of 2020 and really reflecting for me to go, oh shit, I'm so closed off now. I never processed because I was too preoccupied. I never wanted to properly deal. And that made me not want to deal with a lot of other aspects of my life, and I decided I needed to talk. See, during my formative years, high school years, I grew up on a steady diet from 2005 onward of these crime procedural television shows, Bones, Castle, The Mentalist, SVU, all these shows that have strong female protagonists that are usually pretty guarded and then somehow become magically okay by season 4 or 5. And I internalized that and thought I too one day will magically snap out of this just like Olivia Benson. Except it took me to the age of 29 to realize there is no magically snapping out of it. Those are fictional people, and that is fantasy, and you need to do it yourself. You need to talk to someone. I only have one truly memorable experience about talking to someone back then, and it was sometime in May of 2009. At the wake, Conan's administration team came to pay their respects, and all 3 of them offered, if you ever want to talk, our doors are always open. Later that week, I actually did take them up on their offer, even though I didn't know any of them. I had no prior relationship, and I waited for an hour wondering what I was going to say to this woman when I walked into her office. When I walked in, there was a beat, and for the rest of my life, I will never forget her smile and the sunlight behind her and the way she said, I'm really glad you're here, let's talk. So I want to end with a picture I took a couple weeks ago, and I think I'm almost out of time. In May of 2009, Conan's Woodworking Club made a wooden bench dedicated to Laura, and that bench still sits in the administration hallway. The bench has a quote on it, and I never actually thought to look up the quote until writing this. The lines from the poem, the poet Edwin Markham, on his poem, The Creed. The bench says, all that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own. But the full stanza of that poem is actually, there is a destiny that makes us brothers, none goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own. This is the legacy that Laura left in 2009, and it is the legacy that she continues to leave in 2023. We are not alone. We are all connected. I hope this helps you in processing your own traumas and losses, because you should never stop talking. You are not alone. Shout out to Laura.
Thank you for being an awesome audience. One more round of applause. Thank you.